want other people's opinion, you become their prisoner. So find where you are yourself and express yourself and work in the world in ways that, you know, are really integrated with where you're at, you know. And that takes some introspection. It would help to mellow more people out, have them be more effective, I think, if they can, you know, spend some time with, you know, in doing meditation and doing retreat. You know, most traditions of the world have had training period times before they went into war, into battle, or whatever, to collect their energies, as well as create synergy amongst those other people they're going to be working with. So for us to have, you know, weekends where we can brainstorm, where we can work. Come on in. It's okay. It's all right.
Oh yeah, come on.
You're good on camera. Hey. You know, find out the inner strength within us and amongst us, right? Like training sessions. So I'd be very interested in working with others to do this. What I'm doing mostly right now on an activism level is educating people about the law. The law, understanding the law, that's like knowing how to use mantras. Because words are powerful, right? Certain words get people all excited, or certain words get people mellow. Not only the words themselves, but also how you express them, right? And there's a big battle going on for people's minds, and if they can know what's going on behind the scenes in terms of how to approach banks, especially, you know, the biggest, most powerful institution on the planet right now, then you can start winning back your rights, you know, understanding procedure, understanding the way these guys work, the rules of evidence, strict adherence to the rules of evidence really puts them on the spot that, okay, you're telling the truth, no problem. You should have no problem presenting the non-rebuttable evidence in court, right? Okay, so let's go for that. And there's a way to take care of yourself in the process, right? So I think I've recently been asked to organize the Libertarian State Convention in Asheville, North Carolina. And I said, well, great. You know, how many people would you like to have there? Well, last year we only had about 50. Would you like to have 300? Yeah. Well, time's money, as well as, you know, I wouldn't have to put as much time into just feeding myself by swinging a hammer or something like this. If you want to have a really successful conference, then how about if there some percentage per head that comes in will go towards the energy I put into this. Okay, that sounds reasonable, right? So we can start thinking in terms of how to create events and do things that acknowledges the energy we put into it, so we can spend more time at that, to have a life of being an activist and not just having a daytime job that we're working for the man, right? Takes courage, takes support, but it's a whole lot more fun when you're doing things you really like to do than, you know, something you're doing, you know, because you have to, right? Maybe more difficult, maybe a period of, you know, of sighing and, oh, how are we going to do this? But you know, you survive, you know, you keep on going. There's been many situations. I traveled in Europe for a number of years as a traveling yoga teacher, as a traveling monk actually, and there was many times when I didn't have any money or know where I was going to stay that night, but somehow things worked out because I was interested in working with others, helping them out in whatever way, fixing stuff, cooking them a meal. And there are sweet, you know, organizations even now that you can do that. Couch surfing. Who's heard of couch surfing? Yeah. Yeah. Hey, and met some wonderful people who are willing to open their doors to you and like to travel the world. And have you traveled some places or invited people in? Okay.
Not yet. No.
Okay. Yeah, I met some people in Philadelphia on my way up. They were great. 2 journalists that work for a local kind of alternative papers. We're going to have a discussion next time I come through there, right? And So, yeah, this is not me talking. What are people's experience themselves? Have you ever run into situations where you might be talking to people and you thought, let me let them talk?
Yeah, definitely.
I've said enough, you know? How so?
I don't know. I just got to the stage where I found that, once you sort of decide that even if we achieve some of our goals, right, that other people have the right to participate in a government if they want to. They just don't have a right to pull us in. Does that make sense?
Or force you into it, yeah,
exactly.
right.
So that's really all you're trying to achieve, is for them to let you alone, not to change everyone's mind. Does that make sense?
Well, we can't really change somebody. They have to willingly want to change on their own. And with that approach, it's like, hey, well, where are people at? To ask more than tell, I guess, right?
Yeah, so with that, comes a little bit of, kind of takes the pressure off. Of trying to need to convince anybody of at least as much or anything even,
Right. Well, the phrase somebody told me once, which I like, is people care what you know when they know you care, right? And then even if you have differences of opinion, you go away enjoying the interaction with them, You can still continue on and build a friendship, even though you have different ideas. Some people get so invested with their own idea. Is that the whole truth? Is that the same idea you had 10 years ago? Come on. What is it going to be the same idea you have 10 years from now? Exactly. So don't be so invested in where we are right now. We're just throwing this idea up on the wall. Let's discuss the idea, It's not yours. It's the idea.
One thing that you said that really resonated with me was the sort of necessity of having kind of a personal practice in order to sort of prepare for kind of engagement. And a big piece of that is the sort of tendency to pathologize dissent. So that people will read crazy into something because that's sort of an easy way to be dismissive.
Yeah.
And so
right.
Any sort of personality defect can be magnified by this, because then suddenly that becomes connected to the dissenting idea. And so it's when we go into these situations, we sort of, in order to be heard, I feel like that needs to be counterbalanced by kind of having an extra layer of emotional stability and an extra layer of sort of being at peace with where you're at.
Yeah.
So that you can accept those attacks, and instead of reacting with your pathologies, sort of process them and reflect them back on the person you're talking to.
Yeah. Well, we're very empathic. We pick up on people's anger and sorrow, right? Fear, right? We pick up on that. And sometimes we have a hard time differentiating, that's their fear, that's not mine, because it bubbles up inside you. And just like nonviolent communication, to acknowledge, just to be able to chill out and kind of reflect, you're feeling this way. Are you feeling this way? And then, hey, they're acknowledging my emotions potentially, that they're a little not quite right, but I'll tell them, You've made a connection. It kind of diffuses the situation rather than you kind of defend yourself because you feel this anger bubbling up if you feel attacked, right? This escalation. And that's what goes on in wars, right? So diplomacy is, it's got a bad name in some ways, but it's also correct use of words with a spirit of kindness, is more what nonviolent communication is. And there's takes practice and starts with being kind to yourself. You idiot. Ever gone through that? You call yourself names and just beat yourself up on stuff, and it says, even though, somebody else's anger may, or they point out some fault in yourself, maybe they've got a point, and that's, you're trying to defend the fact that damn well that you have that stupid quality, but don't tell me what it is that I don't like about myself. Yeah, that's so funny. So, yeah. Any other comments? The Tao of Activism is the topic that I was talking about. How to continue to develop your own inner strength, create movement, and then not become an enemy yourself, and become a target. You know, try to move the mind of the enemy or his minions so that they don't have more of a reason to attack you in some ways, right? That you're not the enemy. The enemy's within, that thinks it has all the answers. Whatever answer you got, it's deeper than that. Yeah.
Do you, sort of coming from this perspective, do you believe that there are times when it is necessary to sort of provoke that anger rather than avoid it? Like kind of, you know, the thing I think about is, you know, if you've got a block going up against police and saying, like, you know, if the police become violent towards the protest, that will sort of highlight the opposition, sort of like.
Oh yeah, to create an incident, to be able to get media coverage or things like that. Well, as long as you maintain control, you know. I've seen, you know, they can be very angry and then deal with the next person in a kind way, you know, or just for a little bit of that energy. It's just all energy in one way, right? And so that energy is applied harshly and, you know, in a planned fashion, you know, plan to be angry, right? To act angry, but not be angry. You know what I mean? Your beingness is more than your emotions. And that's where you become more in touch with finding out where you as a being are at is a lot more than the expressions you choose to express. So people can goad you with certainly these mantras, calling these nasty names, right? But you can be deeper than that. You can see that they're angry enough to use words to try to get you going because they're angry. It's that empathy thing. You know, they're angry, so they can't stand you being calm. I've had some relationships like that, you know, and then you're just a big ego because I'm not going where she's going, right? Where he's going, and and sometimes you have to, you know, for the sake of some kind of reciprocalness, you have to show anger just so that they think you're serious about the discussion. But then have control, and you don't start getting physical, especially, you know, be able to pull back.
There seems to be so much wisdom available in a book like that. You know, like you say, that the Chinese have been 2,500 years ago. They had some of this down that some of us in the movement don't quite even understand yet. And, or you know, I see people in the movement take real spur of the moment actions, or just kind of lose themselves in the moment and react emotionally, and don't have a deeper strategy that this advocates, or don't understand that you do have to retreat sometimes, and it's actually a victory to retreat.
Yeah.
Because it's part of your more overall approach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think there could be a lot more training in this.
Yeah. And he gets into, you know, practical things too. Like, here's one. The great way is easy, yet people prefer the side paths. Be aware when things are out of balance. Stay centered with the Tao. When rich speculators prosper while farmers lose their land, when government officials spend money on weapons instead of cures, when the upper class is extravagant and irresponsible while the poor have nowhere to turn, all this is robbery and chaos, and it is not in keeping with the Tao. He had messages for the leaders as well, that things are out of balance when this extension of your consciousness called the world, in kind of spiritual terms, is suffering because of your extravagance, because of your, you know, self-centered policies that see yourself as, what's good for you is good for everybody else, and they don't understand what's good for them. That's a disconnect. And actually, I see a lot of cracks forming in the halls of power, and those people who have inherited wealth questioning, younger folks, that questioning, is this what I really want? They don't have to strive for the same things we have to strive for, taking care of things or having ability to spend and having lots of stuff. They're questioning too, and so the old order is changing, and so there is an opportunity even amongst those people who are a completely different socioeconomic class than us to invite them into the space to invite them in and see how much fun it is to make your life meaningful, right? The Tao of Activism, the inner game, and that can keep you going for a long term. Like these same folks with the Vietnam movement, they got burned out. Others, hey, they kept on and changed it from anti-war to peace demonstrations, working for peace. Like Mother Teresa said, she wouldn't go to anti-war protests, but she'd go to a peace march, right?
Well, that goes into the power of words. The concept, the words you use is your focus.
Mm-hmm.
You were talking about the idea of making enemies.
Mm-hmm.
Making enemies. It's a very long tradition, especially with states, to alienate the humanity of your opposition, to make them caricatures of themselves, to dehumanize them. We want the same thing as news reports reporting crime or reporting other circumstances which the state finds reprehensible. They don't talk about it from a human perspective. They talk about it in this almost mythological terms such as victims, suffering, or enemies.
Exactly.
So that we end up with these really powerful words that, to a certain degree, establishes a preset mindset. When we approach a certain situation, we already have an established paradigm based on these words. To fight this dehumanizing effect, we have to acknowledge the humanity of every person. That's why activism can't be on a mass level, because the second you get beyond the one-on-one, the eye contact, and you get into a larger crowd, you lose that.
Mm-hmm.
And you immediately begin to do that very same dehumanizing effect, pigeonholing
Right.
people using power terms.
Yeah, like you mentioned, like the news, and somebody has done something completely weird and strange and violent. They never get into what kind of tortured mind would do this. They must feel very bad about themselves.
Well, let's take that.
It's like, who would want to, that poor person who just really lost it and just got so angry that they want. Would you want to do that? No. I feel so bad about myself for having done that,
Well, to take that most recent shooting
Yeah.
in Sandy Hook Elementary,
Yeah.
they didn't go into talking about the human being.
Yeah.
They immediately started using characterizations,
Right.
Mentally ill, anti-state.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, they went and they created a caricature, and then their news reporting is only reinforcing that caricature, never really looking at the humanity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so, therefore, we're immediately, you will hate this person and this concept and this idea, regardless of who the person really is. And so, therefore, we find our political discourse in the same thing. We talk in classes, and we talk in group,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to individuals.
Yeah.
And so, your concept of relieving or helping those who are underprivileged, but even using the term underprivileged again is a term, but people who are in need of help.
Yeah. Yeah. Those who are willing to change to improve their situation, right? Yeah.
There
and
are
so
those people who drowned intentionally, and there are others who need to be helped.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm interested, and come up and talk to me after this if you like to start thinking in terms of developing a weekend type event. We can do a camp, we can do it cheap, whatever, to bring together people to work on our skills and being able to be better activists that have more fun, right? There's many ways to doing that. Street theater, there's music, there's, different types of interviewing the public, you know, or how to present yourself in a powerful fashion at City Hall, right? In how to talk to legislators, you know, you brainstorm and let's work out and, through trial and error, and, you know, maybe asking them, how would you like to be talked to by a lobby of the people, right, who are wanting more freedom and liberty? Well, how should we present this? You know, we can start working on improving our skills as activists and not just doing the activism, right? And I think that, you know, that can have a, you know, a snowball effect. Train the trainers, and so on, so that we can spread out, because it's time now to start doing this on a local level much more. We got a lot of people who are pretty fired up and becoming well versed in the language, but let's get out of the jargon and start speaking in terms that people can understand us, because we're showing our concern for them, right? And then, hey, this movement could really take off in New Hampshire and elsewhere. There's other groups that are starting up around the country. Around where I am, there's the Blue Ridge Liberty Project, which is along the same lines. Want to get going, you know. And so I'm seeing this libertarian convention I'm asked to organize as being an opportunity to have some other breakout groups and training sessions to have an opportunity for people to learn some of these skills so they can be more effective with their party in their local neighborhood, right, in their local community. So that's about time. I've got some cards here, and for those who are coming in, I'll give out my card here too. My card is educating people to defend themselves, you know, especially in terms of dealing with banks, student loans, credit cards, foreclosures, you know, mortgage issues, all of that. Hey, no problem, banks. Just show us evidence you have lent money. Something that is tangible according to the statute of frauds, right? The contract. Did you create a real contract to begin with? Show us evidence. Where is it? A lot of funny business going on there because they're depending on them being trustworthy. That they don't need to be asked. We already know they're trustworthy. Well, no problem. Show us, you know. And so that in our actions, we should be the same way. If we're trustworthy, then there's no problem proving that, isn't there? Is there? Prove through our actions that we're interested in the people and not just an ego trip of being an activist, right? Because there's that too, right? Being way out there just for attention, you know. Are you concerned about the people and wanting to work with them where they're at and giving them a space for them to interact in the way that they feel comfortable? You know, we can have more options, right? So, thank you very much for coming by.
Thank you.